All right, everyone, welcome back to Hotshots. Dan and Mark here. Gonna do a bit of a Origins recap for everybody. Hell of a weekend. How you feeling after a couple days after we're all done with Origins there, Mark?
I'm well rested now, so that's a plus. I'm not exhausted. I think we had an excellent weekend as a team. I'm a little disappointed personally, but I'm the only one that should be disappointed. Everybody else had an excellent showing, qualified for the invitational and everything. So just got to work even harder for Gencon.
Yeah, definitely as a whole, I would say that the team and the patrons all did pretty damn awesome and pretty damn excellent. I know you're a little upset about your finish, but we'll get into that a little later and kind of discuss that and, you know, try and assess what other players can do differently to not end up in the same spot that you were.
Yeah, totally.
Let's start from the beginning though. Let's start with our tournament prep. I would say that from the day they announced Origins and everything that was going to be involved with that, I think for the most part the team really flipped and started focusing even more than we thought we were going to have to. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was announced what, like midweek? And I think it was announced on like a Wednesday or whatever,
Yeah, it was on a
a
Wednesday.
Thursday, something like that. And we got together that weekend to test, I believe.
Yeah, we ended up skipping a local tournament just so we could actually get together and test instead because we just decided that was more important, that Origins was going to be more important than going to this event.
Right, and that was for like 6 hours, I believe. We were together and stuff.
Yeah, and even on that day, I think we really only tested one deck, and it was really just to test the theory that we had come up with pretty much as soon as they announced sideboards.
Yep.
Um, Other than that, we tested both weekends leading up to Gen Con. We put, a ton of hours in each day. I think it was 6 one day and then maybe 6 or 7 the other day. The second day, I know we had tested other decks. The first day was all about deciding if our sideboard option was going to be good enough and if it had worked the way we thought it was. Even that was even before we had the ruling that we could even do what we wanted to do. So once we realized, all right, this is going to work, and then Wizards confirmed that it was going to work, we were kind of off on the running. We knew what we wanted to do at Origins. We knew what we wanted to play, and it was just a matter of getting all of our other decks up to speed, for us to play in the preliminaries and to give to our patrons and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I mean the game plan was to have a deck that we had that we thought was the best deck, and if we could, to not play it at all until the Open on Sunday. As it turned out, that's what happened, and we all played it. So
Yeah. Four out of five Vectorsigma members played it on Sunday. And the only reason why Palmer didn't was because he had virtually no sleep and very little testing with the deck itself. So he just decided that his best option would be bugs. And, I mean, he got his win, so he got queued. So I guess that worked out for him.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, my normal tournament pred is always hey, get enough sleep. Make sure you get breakfast. Make sure you fill out your deck register sheet correctly and all that stuff like that. For the first day, we got some of those things right. we got, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 hours of sleep. We got in at 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we got about the same amount of sleep each night, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, I feel like our Friday night was a good amount of sleep because I think we slept in a little bit because we knew we were gonna not rush to get there. We were gonna get an Uber and stuff like that. So I feel like we got more sleep, the most sleep on Friday night.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There was also a relief that night because everyone was already qualified. We didn't have anything to worry about for Saturday. Saturday was more or less just, playing to play, if anything.
Playing to play, help the patrons, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Other than that, do you so new sleeves, right? I wanted to mention that. Make sure I know for Sunday. I think I used brand new sleeves that I didn't use all weekend, and I also did the same thing for every event that I played in. I always use new sleeves, just to like stray away from accidentally marked sleeves and stuff like that. You don't want anything. You don't want your opponent to ever think of any crap like that.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of like the ritual that we had Saturday night into Sunday. Kind of all got back together, filled out our deck list after we went over our hour-long sideboard discussion, which
Yeah.
will be somewhere eventually.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I did that and then just re-sleeved the deck and kind of relaxed and got ready for Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. Throughout the weekend, it was just every day it was just planning for the next. I think even all the preparations we did up front, I could safely say that we probably had a 39 card deck that we were very comfortable with in the main deck, and that we kept shooting around the idea of the 40th card, and then I'd say at least a 7 card sideboard that we were probably pretty confirmed with also. And in that recording that Mark's talking about, we kind of fit the last 3 slots as we felt necessary. And that was on Saturday night. But other than that, we basically had like a 46 card deck in total between main deck and sideboard, ready to go. We knew what we wanted. It was just a matter of finishing it.
Yep.
So other than just normal tournament prep, just get your testing in and get your sleep. Make sure you fill out those deck reg sleep sheets correctly. Bixler got a game loss. I think Bixler might have been the only patron slash verse member to get a game loss. I don't think anyone else did, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe it was just him, and he still won that round.
Yeah. I know. Deck sleeves. Sometime they're allowing pen and paper. So if you want to write down stuff that your opponent takes, if you're playing espionages or disruptive entrances, when you see their hand, you can write that down. Sideboard notes. If you want to, you can have prepared sideboard notes. I know I didn't use sideboard notes all week, like for Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, but I did use them on Sunday. So all
That's
those
also kind of had like an unorthodox sideboard plan for 2 of the matches.
Yeah, it was more or less like just a kind of like just like a reminder of what we talked about. I still change on the fly.
Right.
Like I know against Adam I had sideboarded differently than I did against Stefan, for example, and it was just because like I felt differently about different things in that moment. So, with all that, tournament preppers, there's a ton that we could really go into, and maybe we'll come back to this topic before Gencon, just so everyone can really, really just understand everything that goes into it. I will say this: the last thing, and we talked about it in our one of our recap videos, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it again over the next couple weeks. The biggest thing you could do for your local scene is to start enforcing time. I know at this event we had a ton of unintentional draws and stuff like that because just players weren't. I felt like players weren't used to playing under a clock, so like people were taking turns and they were taking longer than usual turns, and because of that, a lot of games were going to time. Whether it's orange mirrors, whether it's blue mirrors, whether it's an orange versus a blue, it doesn't matter. Like everybody seemed to be getting unintentional draws.
Yeah, it was pretty awful to be on the receiving end of that, being like, because you also, everybody's new. This first event that's happening. You don't really want to call a judge for slow play, but I mean, in some situations, you just have to do it. You just have to do it, or you're only going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, it's tough too because we knew it was the first event. We didn't know what to expect from the players and the judges alike. And it really felt like the time was the one thing they were very, very strict on. They started the rounds quickly and they ended the rounds immediately, and they were very strict on turns in time and stuff like that. So I feel like if you have guys that are going to go to Gen Con, if you're getting ready for your store championships and stuff like that, I would start now. I would start enforcing times now just to get everybody used to playing at that schedule.
Right, and I also think they almost had to be strict because they're at a convention. They only have so much time in the hall,
Mm-hmm.
so they have to have like a very quick turnaround, stuff like that. But I will agree, almost not on Thursday, but on Friday and Saturday, there was almost a match every time in time, each round. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and like you're saying, even Thursday and Friday were the lighter days. Thursday was only 19 players after everything was situated with who really signed up and who didn't, and then Friday was I think 34 or 36 players or something like that. But then come Saturday it was 42 players, and there's the same thing. It was a lot of games going to time. There might have been like 5 or 6 matches in time every round.
Yeah.
So it's something to get everyone up to speed and everyone used to it. I'd really start cranking down on the times now if you're planning to go to these bigger events because they're enforcing it very strongly.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things. You're not under that pressure. It's going to come as a shock to you, and it's not going to end well.
Yeah. All right, let's gonna get into it. Let's get into day one. So day one, there were 19 players. We knew that for sure. And we had a couple guys top 8 that event, which is really what we're gonna get into. And we're gonna get into like the different decks that Vectorsigma had created that either we played or our patrons played. And I'm just gonna start with you, Mark. You went 3-1-1 and you top 8 it with cars.
Yes.
So this list is your Prowl, Bumblebee, Wheeljack list, and that might be the one thing that's normal about it. You definitely went a different route with this. We had decided to not go as heavy on like turbo boosters, but we decided to play ready for actions. And even as a whole, it looks pretty action, at least a little bit action heavier than most.
I think it's like 24 and 16, I believe, or it might be like 23-17 in favor of actions.
Okay.
I don't remember off my head what it was since we also changed it then again for Saturday. So all I know is the list that I made top 8 with on Friday was a weaker list than the one that you played on Saturday and I had you guys play.
Yeah, the list that I played on Saturday, which is the one that I'm using for this because it was the best version of the deck that we had decided, is actually 21-19. So it's actually pretty close.
Okay.
But where did this list start? Why did we get to this point?
So, Bumblebee Trusted Lieutenant is third. Basically, whatever you're trying to do, whenever you build a cars deck, the only thing that you're ever looking for are your untap effects to generate extra attacks and control the tempo of the game. That's what you were looking for in Wave 1. That's what you're looking for now. That's what you're going to be looking for in the future. You're looking for the tribal cards. Start Your Engine is the best one, obviously, and turbo boosters. Now, when Bumblebee, wow, this card just digs for cards all the time in tandem with Wheeljack. You're able to see so many cards a turn if you want. You're able to find all your untap effects. And the reason that we went towards ready for action instead of turbo boosters is you don't actually want to flip Bumblebee back to his car mode because then when he attacks, he doesn't get to draw 2 cards, which is very different from Wave 1 when you actually wanted super rare Bumblebee to be in car mode to untap with turbo boosters because then he would be able to, hopefully you were flipping him back so he could attack an untapped character. Now, we did play that in the sideboard, and that is why there's 2 turbo boosters in the sideboard. You basically just switch the turbo boosters to ready for action depending on your matchup. And mostly that was a hedge against bugs because SRB is very good against them at mitigating shrapnel, being able to like snipe down a kickback that they're hiding. but pretty much every other matchup, you just want Trusted Lieutenant to draw you a bunch of cards.
Yeah. Do you remember what you played against on day one?
Yeah, I played against Palmer round one, and he demolished me in 2 games. He killed Kickback. I mean, not Kickback. He killed my Bumblebee on turn one, while I attacked, and he was able to kill it with a Kickback. And then I sided in the Super Rare Bumblebee, and he was able to deal 16 to that in one hit. So I didn't have a very good start.
Yep.
I don't remember what I played round 2. I think round 3 was a Carsmere with Cliff Jumper, which was an unintentional draw.
So you started the event 1-1-1.
Correct.
And had to win out.
Yeah, the last 2 rounds I won. I remember the last round I played against Double Grimlock. I don't remember what all I played, but
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you got. I think you snuck in. I think you were at like 6 or 7 on the day. Finished seed wise.
Yeah,
but
I think I was 7th.
Yeah, but you got in there. You got your queue. What did that mean to you to get your queue on day one?
Well, to me, I was able to relax. Definitely didn't have to worry about playing in the larger events and in as stressful. Like that was what it meant to me. And then also, I think the bigger thing was it meant that I was able to like help patrons, other team members, try and get them queued. Like, so I decided to play deck that would hopefully finish faster. I was able to like get the whole field so we could do the recap, go around, get everything. If somebody needed a drink, go do that, get them a drink. So I kind of felt like I was able to just help other players that were with us. So that's kind of the role that I took then after queuing on day one.
Yeah. I mean, I think you did a pretty phenomenal job doing all those things. You weren't the only one that queued, though. Let's talk a little bit about our Sentinels list. We can kind of segue into both of them. On day one, Eric ended up top 8ing with the verse Sentinels list from Bacon Ice Cream Productions, and then on day 2, Cameron, Arbitrary Hero on YouTube, also top 8'd with it. This is a list that you and I really took into in April, and we both put in an event. We both made top 8 and top 4 at that event, playing it, and we knew in the back of our minds it was still a good deck, sideboards or not. And it's one of the decks that even in testing, up to the last day of testing, like I was still winning games against everything with it. It's also the deck that I decided to play on day one as well. I didn't do as well with it, but Eric was able to sneak in and get top 8. I think he was the same thing. I think he finished like 5th or 6th or something like that because he drew with Palmer in the last round. What are your thoughts on the Sentinels list at the end of day 1 and day 2?
I thought it was a terrible choice. But so not only was like day 1 infested with bugs, then day 2, clearly everybody like shifted toward blue decks and aerial bots, and I think there's this misconception that Sentinels is good against aerial bot, and it is, unless they have 3 Enigmas. If they have 3 Enigmas, it doesn't really matter how many times you mirage them, if they're able to get it all off defense, because that's what the matchup comes down to. If you can't kill them before they combine, you have quite the long road ahead of you, and usually that's what happens. You'll have like 1 or 2 characters, they combine, they shoot a guy for 3, attack it with Pierce 3, and then you're just stuck 1-on-1, and it's tough, especially if they have an armor, stuff like that. So I don't think it's favorable or unfavorable. I'd say it's probably 50-50, and it all hinges on the Enigma in my mind. So, but there was also a whole bunch of other like heavy orange decks, like there were Dinobots, not many. There was Double Grimlock. The Cars decks are able to just like pull themselves out of Mirage and Espionage. They're able to just get in front of it even with security checkpoint, they can recover from that with Bumblebee. So, like, I just think that this was not a good weekend or those 2 days for Sentinels. I mean, Stefan is a diehard Sentinels fan. He did terribly with Sentinels both days that he played it. So he had to play aerial bots in the last event to get his Q. So
Yeah, it was definitely a tough call for day one. Going in, my thoughts of it all was just this deck was going to give me slightly an upper hand, and just seeing what other people were doing, in games 2 and 3 after sideboards and stuff like that, so I could get better information throughout the weekend. But like, I just got smashed pretty much in all 3 rounds I lost. The games really weren't even that close, and it's the reason why I, after that day one, I'm like, I just can't play this deck anymore. It's just too vulnerable to too many different things if the cards don't line up correctly. Its strongest thing you can be doing is security checkpoints, and when you're not drawing security checkpoints, then the deck is pretty normal. So I can definitely agree. I think it was just a tough call.
Well, I think we also failed to pinpoint its strength. Its strength comes in checkpoint and being able to mirage and espionage, which, now granted, those are very strong and disruptive elements, but it doesn't actually let you leverage any sort of play skill at all. You just kind of like draw the cards as they come, and if you draw your disruptive cards and your opponent doesn't, you should be able to beat them. But sometimes they just draw out of it and just kill you. Like, so especially in the mirror, it's not even like really skill intensive. It's who draws checkpoint and makes their opponent discard their hand. Like, that's just how it works.
It's just who gets the weapon to stick.
Right.
So
and
if you're able to, yeah.
So it wasn't a good idea for us to play that for the match.
Yeah. Luckily enough for Eric and Cameron, they were able to just find ways to win. They were able to get in to top 8s and get their Qs for the Open. And at the end of the day, I was impressed because I couldn't do it. I couldn't get in with Sentinels. Eric got in. He dodged bugs on day 1, and that was great. And then on day 2, Cameron kind of did the same thing. He got in. He was able to dodge matchups. He was able to win some that he needed to win to get in. And I think a lot of respect needs to go to them for being able to pull that off with this deck and this meta. It was definitely not, and it probably wasn't the right deck to play all weekend. And they still found a way to get in there.
Yeah, they did.
I can't take that away from them. All right, so that segued from day 1 into day 2 for Sentinels. The other big deck on the day, we're going to start with Double Grimlock. So Adam, what was that?
You don't want to talk about bugs?
We'll get to bugs on day 3, because I think the Verse Bugs deck had a much better day 3.
It did, but Palmer did qualify with bugs.
Yeah, Palmer qualified on day 1. And he played bugs. He ended up, like I said, he beat you in round 1, and I know he drew with Eric in round 5 for to intentional draw each other in.
Yep.
So there's definitely respectable things there too. On day 1, you, Eric, and Palmer all got in. You were already all queued for the Open, so you guys were set for the weekend. And for Palmer, that was a big deal because he couldn't be there Saturday. So since he was able to get it out of the way, it was very helpful.
Yep.
So let's go into Adam. He played Double Grim on Friday, and just for anyone that doesn't know, he started the event 4-0. So he was the undefeated at the end of round 4. And he took 2 losses the rounds afterwards, but he was already locked after round 4, so it didn't even matter if he won or lost the rest of the way because the 12 points was good enough to lock him into his top 8 slot. So this is a deck that we've low key worked on throughout all of Wave 2. What
You had this deck built on A1.
Yeah, yeah. I played
Not
this.
this
Yeah,
build, but
I played this deck on video on day one against Scott playing a crappy Windblade deck, and I was like, man, this deck's a lot of fun. You get to do some stupid stuff. And this version is very different than that day one version. But what makes this deck, what gives it a place in the meta? What do you think? What do you think? Why does this deck stand out to you?
I think it just stands out because not only so it takes two of the most powerful attacking pieces from other types. You have Grimlock, who is the centerpiece and backbone of the Dinobots deck. You have Wheeljack, who is the filtering machine in the Cars deck. He's that engine in there to find specific pieces, and when you need him to, he turns into an absolute monster to just demolish people. So we kind of named it or dubbed it Double Grimlock because we started with Steamroll. So basically, you have Grimlock doing Grimlock things, and then when Wheeljack turns into bot mode, it's like it has a Grimlock-esque ability. He has Bold 3 if you have a weapon, and if you Steamroll, then he has Grimlock's text box. So that's kind of what. And both of those characters are insanely strong, and they also have like a medium-sized health pool. So it's kind of difficult to kill him in one hit. Grimlock's 12-2, Wheeljack's 13-1, and in alt mode he's 13-2. So you got to put a pretty big hurting on him to get him off the battlefield.
Yep, I agree. The big thing about this deck is that from day one to now is that instead of having like 3 steamrolls in the main deck, it's down to only having 1 in the sideboard, and that's it. So really, it's just kind of just a value attacker deck.
Yes. Did he still play with field communicators? We end up cutting most of them.
The day one he played field communicators, and then he went 3-2. He finished 10th, I believe. And then day 2 we cut the field communicators and just played 2 more weapons. He ended up playing an enforcement batons and a static laser over them. And he said the enforcement batons were good all day, and I imagine the laser was, just a 3-attack weapon when he needed it.
Yeah, I think that is going to be the card of the weekend. Enforcement batons was the sleeper card that was just great in pretty much every single that we played, and I think it was in every list that we played except for aerial bots.
I was not playing an enforcement batons and aerial bots.
Right, but it was in every.
You there, Mark?
Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to just get back connected. I have the timer set though, so we're okay. I can just edit that out. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think at the end of it, Enforcement Batons made it into just about every deck that we had made.
Yep.
Some main decked. I know we main decked in Cars. We ended up main decking in Double Grim. It was the sideboard of Sentinels, and it ended up being in the sideboard of 3-wide as well. And
it was sideboard of Bugs.
Yeah, it was in sideboard of Bugs also. So yeah, that card ended up being a pretty good card on the weekend.
Yep. It was very innocuous, but very powerful when necessary.
So this will be kind of the first time we can really start to talk about System Reboot.
Oh, yeah, that's also another card.
Yeah, so System Reboot found its way into a lot of our aggro decks. And this was pretty much entirely your idea. What brought you to System Reboot over Work Overtime or any of the other draw cards?
All right, so anybody that's ever listened to me in these orange deck knows that I love treasure. Being able to trade your action phase to find upgrade or permanent damage. And I'm never upset, like, will flip over action, go away, as long as you find an upgrade. That's all that really matters. And then they work overtime came out, and I was like, man, this card's going to be disgusting. And then I played with it, and I'm like, man, this card is awful. Like, so it only works if you draw it, like when you don't have any cards in it. You can't use it on a turn to find more damage, because then it's usually like draw one, or it's a white pebble, which is not where we want to be. So I was trying to find ways to like refill our hands to like help power up mining picks and stuff like that. And I came back to System Reboot, and I'm like, well, worst case scenario, it sees 4 cards, just like Treasure. And you get to keep everything that you find. Now, yes, it does give your opponent 4 cards, but we're playing it in like incredibly aggressive deck, Double Grimlock. We're playing it in Bugs, playing it in Dinobots, where, yeah, you give them extra cards, but you're going to find a mining pick or a grenade launcher and just smash their face, so you don't actually let them use those cards. Now, something like Cars doesn't have damage output, so that deck can't play System Reboot. It will be a huge drawback for you to actually give them 4 cards, because you're going to attack them down fast enough. But where things like Bug and Dinobots, Double Grimlock, those decks don't really care if your opponent has 4 or 5 and if they're dead, and that's basically what you kind of do with it. It's also one of those things that found a lot of times you have work overtime and you have like an improvised shield and a Peace Tyranny in your hand, and you can't get rid of them. So that way you also get to cycle your double oranges with the reboot and get them in your hand, get a set of cards, hopefully draw an upgrade, and then you just go again and got a brand new hand.
Yes. I think you covered it all pretty well. The other backhand thing that happens, that can happen, is you can also system reboot against aerial bots like the turn before they're going to combine, and you might be able to hit 1 or 2 of their enigmas and maybe even set them back. I know it happened to me. It happened against me one game, and I was like, well, that was kind of annoying. But that's just like a very backhand subtle play that you can use it for as well.
Yeah, and you also have to realize, like, the decks that they're going to see, you're not playing Espionage in any of these decks that have System Reboot, so they're not going to get all of their enigmas every time either. So they're probably just going to lean on, don't have any way to interact them, and the reboot is a valid way to get out of there. It usually will only 1 turn, because then they'll either flip 1 on defense or find it for their draw for the turn, but, it's just an added bonus to something that you can do with that while you're searching for damage.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so, like I said, Bixler, he went 4-0 to start the day, and then he ended up losing to a couple teammates. I believe he lost to Scott and I. And it didn't matter at that point. He was already locked. He was already good. All right, so that would be Mr. Bixler and his top 8. Now let's get to the big deck of day 2, which is aerial bots. There were 7 aerial bot players on Friday. 7. I played 3 of them. Scott played 3 of them. Scott or I didn't play each other, and Scott or I didn't play Kyle, who finished 3rd with aerial bots. This deck, a lot of people think it was like a reaction to day 1. I can say this, for me personally, it was not a reaction to day 1. It was, after day 1 had ended, I had just realized that I didn't want to play a deck that didn't leverage the skill that I had with it. So I wanted to play aerial bots because I knew that, in my opinion, that was my best deck. I knew that I could play that deck as good as anyone could possibly play it, and that's why I said it, at the end of the day, I'm like, I need to play aerial bots tomorrow because I feel the most comfortable playing that deck, and I feel like I can hedge advantages where people aren't used to those happening. Now, what ended up happening on the day is I ended up playing against 3 mirror matches, and I went 3-0 in the mirror. And I had a couple opponents that definitely didn't truly understand the mirror. I had one guy that flipped Alpha Bravo on one and attacked the plane in play mode, and he took a damage from my Alpha Bravo because Alpha Bravo reads whenever a plane attacks, deal 1 damage to it. So I definitely played against players that weren't ready for the mirror and didn't plan for the mirror like we did. And on top of that, everyone was very worried about corners and preventing you from combining fast. And I can tell you from experience firsthand that in one game I got cornered 4 times. I still combined that game and I still won that game. So the corners just didn't matter, because if they're busy playing cornered, they're not actually advancing their board state at all, and they're just swinging for minimal damage anyway. So if I combine with 25 damage instead of 20, chances are you still can't kill Superion in time, so it doesn't actually matter. Which is where, we'll pick up more on what the better sideboard option for it was and why it's not necessarily cornered. But what I can tell you from my point is Scott and I decided to play rapid conversions on our board to try and counter the corners, and that was actually just awful. Without a shadow of a doubt, I would cut those 3 rapid conversions immediately and never ever think about playing them ever again, because they were terrible. Thermal weaponry was something we put in for the board, and we put it in for 3 wide and stuff like that to give us a chance. And I can say that thermal weaponry was phenomenal. I likely would go to 3 of those. I'd probably go to a second axe, and for that last card, I would just, it might even be an enforcement batons, to be quite honest with you. That's how good that card was and everything else.
Yep.
And then the idea of going to Optimus, that was an idea that I had said on day 1 of sideboards, was all right, well, if you go against certain decks, it is a little harder for you to combine, etc., etc. But now it's even more important, with people sideboarding corners and sideboarding, photon bombs and stuff like that. The idea to go into 3 wide is actually really strong. We didn't get a whole lot of time testing that theory, but I can say that I was able to win games against Cameron after boarding into Optimus against Sentinels. He just couldn't put out enough damage to kill everybody in time for me to not finish him off. So even with that very, very little amount of testing that idea, I could see that if you wanted to mainly set your board into that to transform into a legitimate 3 wide deck, there actually might be a lot of merit to it.
Yeah, now I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Who did you keep?
In that matchup, I kept Fireflight and Skydive.
Okay. Was there ever a time where you would side in 3 wide and 1 Alpha Bravo, or not really?
I think there's a chance that you would. It would just, I think it's going to be dependent on every match. I don't think there's a set way to do it. I don't think it's always going to be Skydive and Fireflight. Maybe it will be a Skydive and Alpha Bravo scenario if it's still a little more bluish deck. Maybe it's some deck that's playing 3 Espionage, 3 Disruptive Entrants or something, and they're just trying to keep you off Enigma the whole time. So you just go, whatever, I'm going to play Optimus and then just beat down on you. It's hard to say, but I just think for that particular matchup, I went with those 2 guys because it just felt like I needed to hide Optimus as long as I could to guarantee that I'm going to get something out of Optimus.
Sure.
So that was kind of my theory behind that.
And we did see others the same thing. We saw someone do that on day 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We also saw other players do it throughout the course of the weekend.
Yeah, it definitely happened. The big thing for us, even in the Open when we played 3 wide and we went to 2 tall, if the aerial bot opponents that we had played against had switched into 3 wide, it could have been a problem. I don't know for sure. We didn't test that enough to know, but I know that 2 tall versus 3 wide is naturally a tough matchup. So if you wanted to be able to kind of outplay the sideboard and predict that correctly, then it's definitely an option against the three wides that are going to turn into two talls, because you could get a free win game one and then board as normal, let them go into two tall, and then in game three you could switch, or you could just preemptively switch the three wide and try for the mirror. But I don't know if that's going to work either. It's going to be a really, really interesting mind game, and I think you just kind of have to give up game two possibly, and then let game three, let them present, and then go, okay, I'm going to flip to my three wide now. So sideboards are definitely changing everything, and I think you're going to see more and more of these transformative sideboards and mind games through the boards as time comes on.
Yeah, and it's something that's really awesome. Whole nother level of play. I'm a huge fan of it. I also pretty much built all of my sideboards to have some sort of transformation in them as well. Maybe not to transform them into a whole nother team. Like when I played Dinobots against blue decks, I brought in Ready Factions and Energonics, and people were not ready for that.
Yeah, I hear you. But yeah, so at the end of that day, me and Scott both played aerial bots, and we both went undefeated, actually. He went 4-2, I went 5-1. So between the two of us, we didn't have a loss on the day. We had 3 draws.
He started 1-0-2 though.
He started 1-2 and he had to win out. Yeah, and he got there.
Yeah, so he kind of a stressful day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I went to time 4 rounds in a row. He went to time 5 rounds, I think, when it was all said and done.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, the problem is that all the aerial bots players ended up in the same bracket because of the draw. So we all ended up just playing each other because that's where we were in the standings because of draws. So you definitely have to be weary that that's where the whole time thing comes from. Like, if you're gonna play a deck like that, you have to be able to play at a good pace to try and keep yourself out of the draw bracket. Because since we kept each other all in the draw bracket all day, we actually didn't even get to play the matchups we were favored against. Like, I didn't get to play an orange deck until round 5. Scott didn't get to play an orange deck until round 6. So it's just, that's what ended up happening. So the orange decks really were able, the other 5 orange decks in top 8 were able to do that because they didn't have to play any of the arrow bots, which would have been a bad matchup for them.
Mm-hmm.
So just so if you plan on playing a deck like aerial bots, just get your reps in now and know what you need to do to win your games, because being put in that draw bracket really was horrible. I was in time for 4 rounds in a row. I had to pee for like 3 of those rounds. It was awful.
Yeah, and I think there's also an underlying statement there. You just need to know how to play your deck.
Yep.
Your deck well. Play your deck not fast and loose, but you need to understand what you're trying to do, what's important in every matchup. That way you can shave those precious moments so you don't have to go to time. Kind of have that muscle memory of, okay, this is my hand, this is what I do, here, instead of having to reassess every single turn. And I think that's kind of what happened with these blue decks. People were just like, well, it's good against bugs, I'm going to play it. And they haven't really had any reps in the mirror or even anywhere for that matter, and it just took forever for them to play.
Yeah, and I think a big difference just from playing against my opponents and noticing, like, our lists were very, very different actually. Like, there were a lot of people playing Piercing Blaster, and I get that. So Piercing Blaster, when you played on Superion, like, you now have Pierce 6. But that's all you have. That's all you gain. You don't gain plus attack. So, like, in the orange decks, it's actually not helping you that much, as opposed to where Energon X, puts you to 9 attack or 10 attack with Field Communicator, where you can actually do enough damage in the earlier turns, with your spread damage, with your burn and your armed hovercraft and stuff like that, and you can set up a point where you can come in, shoot a guy, kill that guy, and then attack another guy and kill that guy, and just take away all they could possibly have against you. And I think a lot of players didn't understand that, so when they were combining, they might have only been killing one guy and leaving another dude alive. So like you really need to pick your spots in aerial bots of when is the correct time to use direct damage. Make sure you're choosing all your direct damage on the specific character you need to get rid of. It's a very complicated deck to play, honestly, because if you're not targeting everything correctly and you're not sequencing everything correctly, you can easily put yourself behind in the matchup. That's enough about aerial bots.
Yes,
I'm just tired. I'm just tired talking about it. All right, so let's go to Saturday and let's talk about really just probably the best day for any of our decks in specific, and we're gonna go to bugs. Now this deck on Saturday put you into your second top 8 on the weekend, and in the second event on Saturday, it put 2 of your friends in the top 8 as well, playing the exact same 50 cards as you. And not only did it do that, it also put one of your friends into top 16 and the other one into top 8 of the Open.
Correct.
So this list ended up in, I want to say, 5 total top 8s between all 4 events or all 5 events. So
I think it was 4 and 1.
Okay.
Because Palmer's list was different.
Yeah, Palmer's list was probably
Slightly
about 4 or 5 cards different, maybe.
And the sideboard was completely different.
Okay.
I believe. So this exact list put me in top 8. The first event of Saturday put 2 of those guys in top 8. The second qualifier, it put Nick into the top 8 of the Open and put Alex into the top 16 of the Open.
Yeah. So this list isn't too far off of a list you played last month in an event. The biggest difference is the sideboard, obviously, now that we actually had that. And I don't want to take anything away from the deck itself, but it's basically our normal Insecticons that we've been playing all wave 2, except now it had 2 system reboots in it. But the sideboard, I guess, is where I really just want to get involved. I want to get your idea of why you came to this sideboard, and after the weekend, if there's anything you would change about it. So the Energon Slingshots. What made you come to Energon Slingshot?
So I have been on record as saying playing blue pips in your bug deck is awful. It is awful, but being able to take a hit off of Scrapnel is excellent. It's worth having a miss on Swarm. It's worth having a miss when you attack. And it's specifically for the mirror match. So generally, you're trying to do as much damage as possible every time you play bugs. You want to be ruthless, you want to be efficient, and you want to be fast. The mirror match doesn't really, you don't have to do 10, 15 points of damage when you swing, because there's no defense in the deck. So being able to slingshot something and put on, say, Chop Shop plus an action is going to be enough to kill someone. So it doesn't always have to be a grenade launcher. It doesn't always an erratic lightning in the bugs matchup in the mirror. Whereas other things, slingshot plus 1 attack and 1 direct damage is not where you want to be. But in the mirror, it's excellent. And it's specifically a card for the mirror. And that's all it's really for. It's possible that you bring it in against aerial bot, but you're just basically using that as your upgrade for the turn to deal 1 damage to them, because you're probably not going to deal any additional damage with the guy when you attack. So I don't really know where else I could see you wanting it outside of the mirror, but somebody might be able to prove me wrong, and I hope they do.
Okay. It seemed like Force Field found a home in sideboards all weekend long. Was it good enough for you guys here?
So depends how good your opponent was. I've also advocated that if Bashing Shield is in your main deck, you should never side it out.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. So a lot of my opponents, they would be like, "Oh, I didn't see any force fields from him. I didn't see anything. They would just side out their bashing shields because, historically they're bad against orange decks because they don't really have any armor to kill.
Uh-huh.
Well, every orange deck should have a force field or two in the sideboard that they're going to bring in. If you side that out, your force field is the trump. Now, with that being said, I think the force fields are kind of a crutch and they're not very good. And I wouldn't actually play them in the board of any of my orange decks anymore now that people are aware and keep their bashing shields in. So I just wouldn't bring that card in. I probably wouldn't even put it in my side. So
Yeah, I stressed my belief on it on Thursday. I thought the card was awful.
well, usually it's awful.
Yeah.
But when it's good, it wins you the game.
Yeah, that's fine. For me, it's just not the kind of high risk, high reward that I want to be playing.
Yep, and I can agree with that.
Um, the cornered, I imagine, was just aerial bots, right?
I would sometimes also bring it in against 3-watt. Being able to shut off flame is a huge deal.
Okay.
Like just so you can get an attack on flame or to get it off the table. And even if you aren't going to attack it, like if you're going to set up a turn on Optimus, so you don't have like a damage boosting action to play. If you corner Flame War, not only do you weaken his defense, you also waste their flip because they don't ever want Flame War to be unflipped.
Mm-hmm.
So then they have to take a turn to flip their Flame War back, and then they're losing a turn to flip Optimus to get back an action from the scrap pile. So,
is there any merit to bring it in the mirror?
You can bring it in if you want to corner their Scrapnel.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't think that's generally how it goes, especially since I had Slingshot. Because basically, your first attack is you flip Scrapnel, send it into their scrap. Hopefully, you put 4 to 5 damage on it. That way, it's just within one attack, or show stand range, and then corner really doesn't matter. So, like, you don't ever want to flip any of the other guys back.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, once Scrapnel's dead, and he's generally the first or second bot killed, then it's just a dead draw.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, I can see that. We talked plenty about Enforcer Batons. That card was great for everything we played it in. Ramming speeds are pretty self-explanatory. Why the additional 2 mining picks?
Okay, so now this was actually wrong for this meta. The mining pick should have been in the main, but our local area had a whole bunch of Sentinel, and so mining pick is good if you can keep all the cards in your hand. And against Sentinels, they're just picking apart your hand, and you don't. It's just like an Enforcement Baton. A weapon that only has 1 attack is not good for you.
Right.
So that's why I had the other 2 in the board, because when you're playing against a non-Sentinel deck or a non-disrupt deck, you bring them in and then they're great.
Yeah.
So they probably, for this event, they probably should have been in the main deck, and you probably like trim an erratic lightning and a static laser for them, and it frees up 2 sideboard slots for you to do something else. But I was still kind of scared about Sentinels, and even it's a favorable matchup. They are able to possibly steal a game if they're able to checkpoint you, take all the cards out of your hand, and you just kind of get stuck. So,
yeah, I agree. All right, well, that's enough about bugs for now. We're gonna wheel to that one later. How about we talk about the granddaddy of them all, and we find. Okay, so at this point in the recording, for whatever reason, my mic got dropped, and it just stopped picking me up for about the last 20 or so minutes, which was unfortunate because I spoke a lot. So it's just piece by piece of what Mark had said, and then mostly my synopsis of everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead into Mark's story about his top 32 match with Jacob from the Colorado guys out there, and then I'm going to pick it back up with the remainder of the event and discussing 3 White Optimists and stuff like that. So here is Mark's story of the top 32.
Okay. So I actually think it was an excellent best match that I have played. It was the best match I think that I personally all weekend. It's the best match that a match that I have played since Wave 2 has released. It's possibly the best match I have played since Wave 1. So I played against, I believe his name's Jacobs from Colorado. He's a hell of a player. He was playing 3 White as well. We had a mirror, and it was an excellent match. I won game 1 by being able to burn down his Optimus. He didn't have any direct damage in his list, or he very, very little. We had all the range stuff, so we had 13 things to deal damage outside of combat. Game 2, he was able to stick a data bank on Optimus Prime, and at one point he had like 9 or 10 cards in his hand. Double brainstorm turn, and Optimus like hit me for like 19, and I couldn't recover from that. And so that happens, and we're getting ready for game 3, and we have like 7 minutes left. So we know that game 3 is going to go into time. Now, generally that wouldn't bother me, but since it's a single elimination round, there is a different end of turn procedure. There can't be a draw. There has to be a winner. So what happens is the way that there's when time is that player finishes their turn, and then there's one additional turn. At the end of that turn, whoever has dealt the most amount of damage wins a game. And then if that's tied, you flip cards from the top of your deck until the first player flips an orange. That didn't. Whatever it is, it's awful. So we are coming down to the last turn. And I had my turns all lined up. I was going to hot attack his Flame War with Heavy Handed or the bigger they. I can't remember which. Was it the bigger they are that was in my hand? Right. So I was going to try and use hot and the bigger they are to guarantee 4 damage on Optimus. Time was called, and like I kind of just had like a brain fart. So I'm thinking, currently he has 10 damage because my Flame War's dead, and that's all the damage that there is. I have some damage spread across. His Flame War has 7 damage on it and an Energon Axe. I'm like, well, if I kill the Flame War, I will only deal 3 damage. I didn't want to waste all that damage. So I flipped Optimus and attack. I played, my hand was Security Checkpoint, the bigger they are, Security Console, and I think Handheld Blaster or something that was useless. So I play Console and I play Checkpoint, thinking that I have to get an axe out of his hand if he has it. I'm going to deal the most amount of damage that I can and hope that he doesn't have anything. I discard a Handheld Blaster. My Optimus is fully though. He has a weapon. It's a hovercraft, Security Console, and a sparring gear or a reinforced plating. One of those, same thing. So I attack. My Optimus doesn't bail me out, doesn't flip an action, and I have 5 damage to hit Optimus or whoever rides somebody. So he gets the next turn. I have 5 more than him. He's able to flip his Optimus back, get back. The bigger they are, played on his Flame War with the energy and attack me for Pierce 6. Beats me by a point. I didn't see that play. He outplayed me. He deserves it. So what I should have done was clearly play the bigger they are on my Optimus just for 2 extra damage, and it would have been helpful if Optimus would have bailed me out on an action. But neither of those things happened, and now I have to play a Gencon.
So Mark had a pretty unfortunate beat there. He kind of beat himself, and he didn't think his plays through well enough. And because of that, Jacob was definitely able to get that win. He played the best he could. He outplayed Mark, and he just made a great play. And definitely cost Mark his top 16, maybe a little more. Who knows? Can't really bet on that. But regardless, Mark had a great finish. He had a great weekend as a whole. He could have potentially made top 8 of every prelim. So just the idea that his whole weekend ended on one misplay just shows you what this game is like. It's very easy to make a mistake, and that mistake will cost you a match. I think Mark had to learn that the hard way, unfortunately. So I'm going to go into the next part, kind of just cover everyone from Vector Sigma. Everyone's kind of dud their story a little bit here and there. But for that point, after the top 32, Palmer had made top 16, Scott had made top 16, Bixler had made top 16, and myself. I got paired against Palmer. He was playing Bugs. I was able to beat Palmer 2-0 to advance to the top 8. Scott got paired against Brian from Wreck and Roll, and he lost in 3 games. I believe he lost on a very, very close game, and he believes he lost on the first attack of the game because Brian flipped the blue on defense. You can ask Scott about that if you really want to. And then after that, Bixler, he went up against another aerial bots list, and kind of the same story that I had told from my article. Just the transforming into 2 wide and, really busting out the plasma, the photon bombs is just too strong, and you're able to just overwhelm the aerial bot board. So Bixler was able to get in the top 8. So at that point, me and Bixler were the only remainder Vector Sigma team members, and unfortunately we got paired against each other in the top 8. I was able to beat him in the mirror match. It was definitely tight games, close games, great all around. Very unfortunate for me because I had to go through my team for top 16 and top 8. But, that's life sometimes, and it just sucks. From there, the top 4, I got paired against Brian from Wreck and Roll, and I was able to kind of get a little lucky against Brian in the in Game 3. It really came down to just a matter of plays, and I just kind of pulled that one out. He made, what could have been a mistake from his side. He just misjudged the field and didn't realize that Nemesis was untapped, and so he attacked with his wheeljack first rather than trying to wait another turn to suit him up off another draw or something like that, and just kind of sacrifice Prowl as a sacrificial lamb. And I was able to kill the wheeljack on the swing back, and he wasn't able to do too much damage to my Nemesis, so the Prowl didn't have much of a shot. Now, he was still alive to draw things, he could have drew a function, or maybe even a grenade launcher type scenario to try and get out of it, to try and kill me. It just didn't work out that way in his favor, unfortunately. And then from there, we went to the finals. It was against Stefan Estatakuma. I wrote about it in my article at length. That's already been out there. It was a coin flip game. It's really what it comes down to. The mirror is a coin flip game. The die roll is a big deal, and I said in my article I made I came to 2 forks in the road with decision points, and both times it looks like I chose the wrong decision point based on the way the game had unfolded. Granted, either way, Optimus flips differently here, Optimus flips differently there. Another card goes in my graveyard, who knows? Goes in the scrap pile, who knows? Could have been different, but it wasn't. It was definitely Stefan's weekend. He earned that spot in top 32. He earned that win all day long, all the way to the finals, and congratulations to him again. It was definitely a pleasure to play him in the finals. It's funny because I don't think everyone knows the whole story, but me and Stefan kind of got into the game about the same time, and throughout all of Wave 2, we've been on the top 4s and finals of almost every event we've attended, minus here or there, and it's just kind of funny to see me and Stefan in the finals of this one. It's just, I don't know, it's remarkable that we both ended up there after the weekends we each had. Other than that, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about three wide. For us, the deck was a foregone conclusion 3 weeks prior. When they announced sideboards, I had immediately said to Mark and to Scott, I'm like, we can turn three wide into two tall, and because of that, I think we can have game against aerial bots. Now, at the time when I said that, I didn't know how much game we could really have, which is why we immediately got together that Saturday and tested it. And from that point on, we knew Photon Bomb was real. We knew, that just doing 2 Photon Bombs in a game was almost enough to win. But, like, the fact that you could even do more than 2 was just absurd. And it was really meta warping in that aspect that sideboards just quickly took away three wide's worst matchup by far. Like, the matchup against Aerialbots game 1 is like 99-1. They have to draw like 0 burn, and you have to draw everything you can possibly imagine to try and kill like 3 of their bots before they combine, and it's just unrealistic. It just doesn't happen. And the fact that the sideboards had come out and created this opportunity for 3Y to transform into 2 tall and be so dominant in that one matchup that was really, really tough, it was just awesome for us to discover that as quickly as we did, and really put the work in to make sure we were going to tune it. Anyone that watched that video about our sideboard discussion, that's a normal thing for us. We do this on a weekly basis, on a daily basis sometime between me and Mark. Every single card in our deck, it gets challenged by anyone at a part of the deck building process. And it has to be that way. It's so tough to not have a team in this game because you don't have anyone else to challenge you. So if you come up with a deck list and you're so set on those 50 card deck list, the problem becomes like you don't know whether or not your 39th and 40th card in the main deck are correct, because there's no one to challenge you to say, well, why are you playing these cards? And you're really just going off yourself, and it's hard to make those calls by yourself, especially in a limited time. So that video about the side decking, it's just it's pure, and it's real, and it's really, really strong, because it's just proof like that we challenge each other with every single card, with every single deck. Constantly someone is challenging, well, why that card, why this card. And just the team aspect that we brought to Origins, as a whole, competed and really supported each other all weekend. Day 1, I had a bad day, and Mark just, riled me all day about it because he knew that I was frustrated in some ways about myself and my choice, the decision I made that day. But he also knew and had faith that I would rally back. So that's just Mark's way of showing his support, I guess. But Bixler and Scott, and Palmer, like we all did our part all weekend long to help and make sure everyone got their invites for Sunday, and it was just a great experience as a team as a whole, and I couldn't be more grateful to have this team, because if it weren't for them, I would not have been in the finals for certain. If it weren't for Scott, I wouldn't have beaten Brian in top 4, and so on and so forth. It just trickles down the effect. To get into some more of the stuff for 3-wide, I really just can't go into more just to go watch that sideboard video. It'll be in the description. That video was just incredibly pure. It really was. No one even knew I was recording it, so it was just one of those like off-the-cuff things that we're just discussing it, and no one even had a clue that it was even happening and that it was even going to be used as footage, basically. Speaking of teamwork, I wanted to just pitch it to one last video clip of Mark talking about how he felt about the end of the weekend and the convention itself, and just basically to give you guys all a laugh about what he said, and about our road trips and stuff like that.
I had a great time. I'm usually not a convention style guy, but I had a great time. But I don't really think that's indicative of the actual event. I think I had a great time because of the team that we were with. We all really pulled together. We did whatever we could to help each other out. Um, and that to me was excellent. We had some awesome jamming sessions in a car. We had some Limp Bizkit rocking out. And then on the way home, we got some Party in the USA and some Backstreet Boys. How can you top that? You just can't. You just can't do it.
That's right. There is footage of Mark and I and Bixler rocking out to Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus and Larger Than Life Backstreet Boys. No one will ever see this footage, I swear. But it exists. And it was a great time traveling with those guys. Palmer on the way up, he was with us on the way up, and then on the way back he drove with his wife. But we had a great time. It was a good road trip. They really made it more fun than we thought it was probably going to be in our 8-hour drive. But all in all, it was a phenomenal weekend. Vector Sigma as a whole did absolutely incredible. Mark was able to teach 2 new guys how to play bugs in a half hour or shorter. And, those guys were able to go to a top 16 finish and a top 8 finish in the Open. And, that's just incredible to be able to pick up players like that so quickly. Those guys they're going to be a threat probably come Invitational. I don't know if they're going to be a Gen Con and play there, but they'll be in the Invitational for sure. So it's pretty great. Congrats to Alex and Nick for making there. I wanted to congratulate Eric and Cameron again. You guys both made top 32. Unfortunately, you both lost, but hey, Gen Con's around the corner. Always a second shot at it, and when in doubt, if it doesn't work at a Gen Con, then there is Store Championships, and there's going to be plenty of time to try and get that invite. Lastly, there was Kent. Kent, you made top 8. Congrats to you, dude. You had a great weekend. You had kind of the same couple days. You were struggling to get your invite to top 32. You got in there Saturday morning, and you made the best of it and got the top 8. Congrats to you, buddy. I think that's about it for the 5 patrons that had made it, I believe. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I'm kind of doing this off the cuff to try and get it out today. But yeah, it was awesome. It was so much fun meeting everyone from the Patreon, meeting everyone from all over. I played against guys from New Hampshire and guys from Colorado, guys from Indiana, Chicago. I played against so many different players that came from all over, and that was so awesome for this game, for the first event, to have that many individuals come out from all over the place to play Transformers. It was awesome. It was so much fun, and it was so great getting to know as many people as I did. And I'm looking forward to Gen Con and meeting all sorts of new people and hopefully seeing familiar faces from Origins, because it really was a fun event. It was great. Pastimes did a phenomenal job at running it. It was awesome seeing Watsy there with John and the conversations with Ken. It was a great time, and I'm just grateful for the whole weekend. I was lucky, At the end of the day, I can put all the work in the world, but you still need to be lucky to get to a finals, especially in the first event. It'll be something on my resume for a while to say, well, hey, I got to the finals of the first Open, and that was awesome. One last time, congratulate everyone in the top 8. To the top 4, the 4 content creators was great. I said it over and over again. Nata Machines, Matt, Brian, Wreck and Roll, Stefan, Estatakuma. Awesome to see 4 content creators in the top 4 to prove that we put in the work, and maybe we did deserve that top 4. Whether or not we were lucky, it doesn't matter. But all in all, I really wanted to say thank you to everyone that came out to Origins. It was awesome. It was a great weekend, and I can't wait to see everybody again at Gen Con. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're just a couple weeks away. I think at this time of release, Siege 1 has been released today, and it's going to be a fun, exciting month to see what the meta changes and develops into. Definitely stay tuned to vectorsigma.info and our YouTube channel. We have a ton of content that's going to be coming in a couple weeks. Me and Mark are going to be doing the build a deck on Megatron because that's what you guys voted for. We'll see how that goes. I believe we're going to do another build a deck most likely as well. I'm not sure exactly what character. We're going to let the patrons decide that one. And, just look out for all the verse videos that'll be coming also. Next weekend, we're getting together. We're having like a 2 or 3 day testing weekend. We're going to get a ton of footage, do a ton of videos. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out in the coming weeks from Vectorsigma.info. So once again, congratulate everyone in the top 16 of the Invitational. You all earned your invite. I can't wait to see you guys at PAX. But before then, we have Gencon, so get ready and look out for all the coverage leading up into that. Have a good day, guys.